Time for the Saints to move on from aging stars and why New Orleans needs a full rebuild. Ladies and gentlemen, today the backdrop off the bench, T-Bob, Hebert, and Jacob Hester. The question posed today is really, are the Saints too old? Bottom line. I would say two-part answer to a one-part question. It's not that they're too old. It's that they're not good enough. Like, I don't care about a player's age as long as the player is impactful, right? Like, no one was sitting there saying Tom Brady was too old when he was winning another Lombardi. Nobody's saying that Derrick Henry is too old right now, even though he's a 30-year-old running back, because he's probably going to win Offensive Player of the Year. Okay? So I don't really care about the age as much as I care about the actual on-field impact. And I think we have seen, I mean, if you watch any amount of the NFL, you can see like whose rosters are good, whose players are dynamic, who is just kind of built diffy, as they say. The Saints just aren't overall built diffy. And even Dennis Allen got in a lot of trouble this week for saying that that we had good young players, but not great young players. Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely true. Like, I mean, it's not what you want to hear, but you look at Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey's a rookie. I understand they're drafted in totally different rounds and all that stuff, but Ladd McConkey's a rookie. Bub Means is a rookie. Different. Okay? Like, just bottom line, different. And again, I'm not saying that those two are equal because they were drafted differently and have evals and all that stuff, but the Saints do have to get younger, sure. Younger usually does come with better contracts. It's a little bit more less investment when it comes to a contract thing. Usually a rookie deals and all of that is more beneficial to the team. But it's not just about getting younger. It's about getting more explosive, getting more dynamic, getting better overall. We're just not a great team. Like, we have great parts, some great parts. You could argue that Chris Olave is a great part. You could argue that Alvin Kamara is a great part. You could argue that Talise Fuaga, Marshawn Lattimore, whatever. But as far as the entirety, as far as the whole roster, it's just not that great of a roster. It kind of reminds me of like the Dallas Cowboys, where the Dallas Cowboys have parts that you would say are really good. Like CeeDee Lamb, no doubt about it. And he is way better than any player the Saints have. But overall, you look at Dallas and you're like, this is just kind of a middling roster. Like, it's not very good. So we do need to move on from aging stars, but we need to replace them with more impactful, dynamic, and just overall better players.
Things look bad for the Saints right now. 6 losses in a row for the first time, as Taylor pointed out yesterday, since 2005.
Yep.
Since the pre-Peyton era.
Just before it. That's what led to the Peyton era.
But what do you do when things go bad? You got to figure it out with collaborative meetings. Who doesn't love a good workplace meeting, guys?
Nothing fixes the problem like
out there, the Saints players have decided to get together and hash it out. So I think the season's probably saved. Like they were writing about yesterday, 3 teams started 2-6 and made the playoffs. Make it a 4th. Year 2024 New Orleans Saints. Derek Carr gets healthy. Players figure out what's gone wrong, and this is where it all begins. I mean, you've been a part of an awful team that got hot and made the playoffs, right?
Yeah, 4-8.
There you go. Did you all have a players only meeting?
I don't know.
Come on now, don't lie. Maybe there was like a little.
I mean, it could have been. That was 16 years ago.
Yeah.
So maybe there was. We also. Denver was 8-4.
I was about to say a lot of, well, he didn't just say that right there, but I was waiting because, when you start talking about making the playoffs, a lot of that is reliant on what's around you. A lot of that is reliant on how bad your division is, reliant on how bad the other teams that are trying to fight for a wild card are. We have seen teams with losing records make playoffs. I don't think we'll see that this year in the NFC South, but so sometimes that can help a team that's hypothetically 2-6, right? But you got to win. And, we'll see this weekend. We're pretty much full strength this weekend. Obviously, Eric McCoy's not back, but we are at the level of injury returns where there's no excuses now. I mean, there's no excuses against the Chargers either, but you could still say, well, we don't have Derek Carr. Rattler was terrible. It is what it is. Now that we have Carr back, I mean, I'm not saying that he's going to come in and save the season. I'm not going to say that we're going to make the playoffs or any of that, but we do have to see an effort Sunday. I mean, we do have to see Carolina's openly selling. They just traded Deontay Johnson. Bryce Young is starting. Bryce Young is the worst quarterback in the NFL. Counting some backups. He's probably not even top 40 in the NFL. So there's no reason the Saints can't go to Carolina, put up a really good performance, and potentially that does spark something. Does it spark a playoff run? I don't know about that, but it should spark something.
And they lost 3 games in a row to make them 8-7. We won 3 in a row to go 7-8. Then we played them the last game of the year and beat the hell out of the Denver Broncos that day. I don't know that that's going to be the same scenario. I don't know. See, the thing was, like, we were playing really well. We were losing, like, 1-score games. We were losing by 3. It felt like every single week.
All that means is the Saints got more room to improve.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Nowhere to go.
I do throw a lot of that out. Like, I know what Jake's saying. Jake's saying, like, if you're right there, it's not hard to turn the corner, which I agree with. But you kind of have to throw out you got to throw out a lot of the stuff. Like, we really haven't, even like the analytics and stuff that we look at, like, there's no point in looking at it when the team is changing or the team is playing with players that aren't there long term. Like, looking at analytics of what our offensive line looks like right now, like 2 weeks ago, like, why would we have done that? There's players playing in a position they've never played before for one game only. So it's a weird thing because, yeah, we're not close in any of these games, no doubt about it. But we're also not rolling out the same team. Like, were we competitive against Denver? No, we were not. But 2 weeks later, we're going to roll out a completely different team. Like, think about the team that is going to play the Panthers and think about the team that played the Broncos. Almost two separate rosters. Like, almost two separate, certainly on offense, almost two totally different offenses. You could have the Denver offense play the offense that we're going to see against Carolina, and you wouldn't have that many players like doing it twice, right? So, on one hand, I understand what Jake's saying, but I do think you have to factor in that it's just a totally different team from now until hopefully the rest of the year.
Go, but up.
Yeah, we also had like a franchise quarterback that could lead us back, but sure.
Don't give up. Yeah, actually. So the
and
best
I think
part,
Atlanta and Tampa are not going to be, collapsing.
I mean, they are kind of collapsing. Atlanta's not so much collapsing as they're just mediocre, but Tampa's collapsing. Like, Tampa's injury situation really bad, not getting better anytime soon. Atlanta, middle of the road. We play Atlanta, so trivia, we play Atlanta in the Dome in a couple of weeks. What do you think the line is for that game? I know what the answer is. What do you think the line is? Who here, just raise your hand. You don't have to go into the comments or anything. Who here thinks Atlanta should be the favorite in that game against us in the Dome? Just raise your hand. What if I told you that it's a pick? What if I told you that it's just a pick? The line is even. How crazy is that? I think a lot of people, and this is one thing too, when you are as this close to the team as I am, and as I'm sure most of y'all watching, things can look way better than they are, and they can look way worse than they are. Okay, like, I've heard a lot of people say, like, no way we beat Carolina. And it's like, well, we're 7-point favorites on the road. Like, we are, the market makers who aren't as glued into the team, who have no bias, who are just going over this. Like, and yes, they make mistakes sometimes, sure, but it just shows you the overall sentiment of that game. It shows you the overall sentiment of us in this Atlanta game, where I think I'm going to go ahead and predict, and we're a couple of weeks away from this, but I'm going to go ahead and predict that the week of the Atlanta game, no one is going to give us a chance to beat Atlanta. All the analysts, because we're so tied into this team, and it's such a negative environment right now. So even though Jacob's saying, like, he doesn't think Atlanta and Tampa will collapse, we do play both teams again, right? So you win those games. Atlanta does what it did against Seattle a couple more times. Tampa Bay continues to struggle with injuries. I'm not saying they're going to full scale collapse, but I don't think either one of them is going to run away from the Saints.
One of the parts that I thought was kind of funny is in the piece in the Advocate, it says, Kamara also added that he wanted to hear from leaders such as Cam Jordan and Demario Davis on what they think has gone wrong. Kamara said he has his own theories, but he realized others might have a different opinion. Funny on multiple levels. first off, like, how much of this do you think is them just going to sit there and be like, look, the coaches suck, but we got to overcome? Or is this a meeting where they more put it on themselves?
I am not giving the coaches a pass. I think Dennis Allen should be fired, will be fired, no doubt about it. But I do think it's a little crazy if you're DeMario Davis and Cam Jordan and anyone else on the defense. You're like, man, these coaches suck, but we gotta persevere. And it's like, guys, y'all gave up 7 yards a rush for like 5 straight weeks. Y'all gave up 7 yards per play for over a month. Like, Sean Tucker had 140 yards on y'all. Can you imagine Alontae Taylor being like, yeah, man, Dennis Allen sucks. And then you watch the tape of him getting mossed on by Ladd McConkey when he's in perfect position to intercept the ball. Or Ugo Amadi being like, yeah, man, I can't believe that Dennis Allen guy sure does suck. And then you have video of Ugo Amadi standing in front of Ladd McConkey in the back of the end zone getting mossed. Like, they've been bad. The play has been bad. So talk about disingenuous, as if the players aren't taking accountability and the players are buying into the idea that this is all the coach's fault after what we've watched. That would not be good.
No, there'll be some coach talk. That's why it's players only. There'll be some. Yeah, there'll be some. This is sure. What the situation is, but we can't allow that to affect us. We're still pros. We got
to make money. You got to say keep a job. You got to.
Yeah, they'll talk about their jobs, and they'll point out some guys that need to step it up, and hopefully they won't be too sensitive in that. But yeah, no, that's why you have players only. You're like, hey, despite Dennis Allen, like, let's go out there and let's do, A, B, and C. Now, I would have liked, if you're going to do this, and it's not my favorite thing in the world because, like, you're in the NFL, you should do these things already, but you should have had this after Kansas City. Like, that's when this takes place, okay? You lost a close one to Philadelphia. You lost a close one to Atlanta. Yeah. You actually had some moments against Kansas City. That game was always going to be incredibly difficult, almost impossible. On the road, prime time, you were injured to hell, all of that, okay? That's when you have that. Because after then, you've lost 51-27, 33-10, 26-8.
But you also have to remember. So you have to remember that we play Kansas City, and then we play on Monday night. Then we turn around and play on Sunday, play the Bucks. Then we turn around and play a couple days later and play the Broncos. So the scheduling spot may not have been not exactly perfect for what he's talking about. Having this like player-only meeting. You're playing 3 games in 11 days or whatever it was. Oh, Derek Carr's ripped his oblique off. Oh, you're playing, backups here and backups there and backups here. Like, there's a lot of stuff happening around that time this season where, yeah, perfect world, you probably do have that players-only meeting. But in our situation, things were just kind of... It was kind of a perfect storm to where I'm not even sure if that was possible.
Now the message is going to probably fall on deaf ears.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, the part about like asking Cam and DeMario what were wrong. Are they just like, we just got old, dude? Like
old father time.
Like, we just got old. I don't know.
He's undefeated.
I got some theories about what y'all whippersnappers should be doing better, but
I really hope they say whippersnappers.
Might be it for us. And I'm sorry. That's I have never in covering the Saints for 10 years on the radio, I have never made a joke at the expense of Cam Jordan or DeMario Davis. So allow me this one and do not run with it and think it of me as being not, huge fans of those guys, or very thankful for how they put it on for this franchise and for this team for years and years and years, because I freaking love Cam Jordan. And
yeah, I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I love Cam Jordan. I love DeMario Davis, no doubt about it. But, at some point, we also have to be unbiased in how we're covering this team. At the end of Drew Brees, at the end of Drew Brees, I was saying, look, I mean, we can't really do this. Like, we can't have a guy who can barely throw, can barely stand, can barely do whatever. Like, I love the guy, make him the mayor of the city, but we might have to turn the page here. And I think that's where we're at with DeMario Davis and Cam Jordan and a host of other aging veterans where, yeah, I love these guys on the team, but I don't love the lack of production. I don't love all of that. And if physically they are declining, then it is what it is. So again, put him in the ring of honor, put whatever, build a statue, but you do have to get better on the field at a certain point.
Demario Davis. It's just that, unfortunately, yes, it does seem, not seem, it's pretty objective at this point that, yeah, I mean, age comes for us all.
Oh, yeah. For sure. And look, certainly Demario Davis, and he did play better this week than he had in the weeks leading into it. That's somebody that's still playing every snap.
Yeah.
Right? And so, like, you're wondering, okay, man, gosh, he was so good. It's like, yeah, but it happens. One day, like, it happens where the things that you've always done at an elite level, you can no longer do at an elite level. You can still be an NFL player. You can still be there, but it's just not going to be the same. And I've seen it happen to the Hall of Famers. I've seen it happen to Hall of Famers, right? So it happens to everybody. And Cam, at this point, he's playing like a third of the plays. He played 19 of the 66 plays.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's doing virtually nothing. Like, and that's another thing, too, where I think people, I see in the comments all the time, they're like, where is Cam Jordan? Where are the sacks? And it's like, brother, he's on the field for 15 plays. Like, he's barely even on the field. He is, at this point, a rotational player at best. Like, I know we're just throwing darts at the wall of, like, where we can pass the blame, but a guy who's playing 15 snaps, I mean, I'm sitting in the stands eating hot dogs, and I didn't play that fewer snaps than Cam Jordan,
Which is, during the vast majority of Cam's career, he actually had like the highest usage rate of any defensive end in the league, where he'd play like,
because he was a 3-down guy.
Yeah, he'd play like 98% of the plays, something that nobody at that position group does. So it is what it is, man. Players only meeting though. I'd like to call players only meeting to talk about Taylor, but there's no other subjects allowed to be talked about. So you can't levy any criticism against me. We're only going to try to talk about how Taylor can start being better. Do y'all agree?
Yep.
All right, cool. After the show, let's get together and make this happen. Wow.
There it is. I feel bad for Taylor after the show. Sounds like he's going to get a talking to. Ladies and gentlemen, get on down in the comments below. Let me know what you think about this. Do the Saints need to get younger, or do they need to get better? Or a combination of both? Thank you very much for watching. I will see you in the next video.